Okay, so unless you have been living under a rock, you probably know that we're getting some new stuff in Duel Links in a while. We're gonna get a new selection box, we're gonna get new support, new skills, and most notably, we're gonna get a new hand trap in Nibiru the Primal Being. If you play this TCG, you probably are very familiar with this card. If you play Master Duel, you probably see this card a lot. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how good this actually will be. This video is going to be not very structured, it's just me yapping, I guess. So please give some comments on what you think this card will how good it will be, and if you want to get it or not. Do you think it should be limited or not? And also just comment about how you think about this type of video in general, I guess. Let's have a look at this card. Nibiru the Primal Being is a really high level light 11 leveled rock monster that is a hand trap. During the main phase, if your opponent normal or special summoned 5 times or more this turn, you can summon this card from your hand and tribute all other monsters on the field, including your own, and then give your opponent a massive token that has the combined attack and defense of all the monsters that you attributed. So what this does is basically if your opponent has a really big combo deck that combos a whole lot and summons a whole bunch of monsters, you can just summon this card from your hand during the main phase and just clear your opponent's entire board. So that's the idea. That is a really good effect in the TCG and also Master Duel, but how good will it actually be in Duel Links? Before I actually talk about my own opinions, let's actually go to the tier list, look at the decks in the tier list right now, and just have a look at how good this card will be against these decks, and also if the decks in the tier list will actually play this card, because one of the drawbacks of playing Nibiru is that it summons itself, so a lot of the skills, a lot of exclusive skills of the decks in the meta right now actually lock you from special summoning monsters that are not from their archetype, which means not every deck can actually play Nibiru. So with that said, let's have a look at each of them. First is Borrowlink. Let's have a look at the skill. It says during this duel you can normal summon or set monsters with some of 4,000 attack and defense, but you cannot normal summon or special summon monsters except Dark Cyrus or Dark Dragon, so no Nibiru. But is it good against Borrowlink? I think Nibiru is one of the best hand traps against this deck because it summons a whole lot, and none of the cards in this deck actually negates monster effects. The ritual negates special summons, which cannot negate Nibiru because Nibiru is a effect that special summons and not an inherent special summon. And yeah, the fusion pops, the Boral load links don't actually prevent Nibiru. Decode Talker only prevents targeting effects. So yeah, you can just wait until Borrowlink does all their combos and then just sack their entire board from Nibiru. That's going to be pretty good. And it's also just really good in general, even if they go second, because you can just not commit too much and then have your opponent do all of their combos, like make a Levianeer or make Advanced Dragon, just wait for them to clear your entire board, and you'll still have a Nibiru in your hand that you can be sure that you can safely activate its effect because it stays in your hand, it won't be popped, so you can just wait until your opponent commits and then just clear their board. Next deck, let's talk about Shaddolls first. So Shaddolls is... let's see if this skill actually stops you from using any monster. No, it really... it doesn't prevent you from special summoning a Nibiru, but it can only be used if all of your monsters in your deck are Shaddolls or Spellcaster monsters, so you can't play Nibiru. But I don't think Nibiru is going to be very good against this deck either, because yeah, Shaddolls just don't special summon a whole lot. You can very easily just do your combo and do your setup with less than 5 summons. So yeah, not very good against Shaddolls. And even if you sack their board, it's not a big deal because their trap is just gonna bring the fusions back anyway, and also it triggers their grave artifacts. So, not good against Shaddol. Pepe. So, I am pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure that if you summon a monster from your skill with like Borrowlink or Performage or Sacred Beast, I don't think it counts towards the 5 summons because it doesn't really count as a summon. So, I could be wrong, but I'm 99% sure that it does not count because it, most skill says play. And as we know from skills in the past, it doesn't really count towards stuff like Summon Breaker, for example. Anyway, so Performage locks you into Performages and level 4 spellcasters, so no Nibiru, you can't play it in this deck. Against Performages, it's decent. I would say it's decent. It does clear their board, and they cannot really prevent it, but it doesn't really completely stop their deck, because first of all, I think they can survive past Nib from just having Damage Juggler in hand to prevent OTKs and just a generic back row, and then during their next turn they can just put everything back on the board again. So it should not be too big of a deal, but it is effective. So it does do something against Performages. Unchained. Unchained uses any skills, so obviously you can play Nibiru, and they don't really lock you into Fiends, I think. Yeah, the lock on Fiends only kind of matters in your own turn, so you can just use Nibiru freely during your opponent's turn. And yeah, you can play Nib in this deck, but is it good against Unchained? I think Unchained can do their setup combo within 5 summons. So summon Aruha, pop the back row, summon Sarama, pop the Aruha, and Aruha summons Unchained Soul, and then make the link too. Yeah, you can do it within 4 summons. So they can play around with Nibiru pretty effectively, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem, but if you do not play around Nibiru and commit too much, it is still pretty devastating a lot of times because it tributes your entire board and it does not trigger your grave artifacts because it all needs to be destroyed for the Unchained to actually use their grave artifacts. So if you don't play well and commit too much, potentially you might get yourself in a position that loses to Nibiru very hard, but usually, yeah, usually you won't be a problem. Usually it won't be a problem. Okay, for the tier 3 decks, let's have a look at Blue Eyes. Yep, Blue Eyes. Battle Chronicle does not let you play not let you summon Nibiru. And Nibiru is also not very good against this deck either, because you can just normal summon Blue Eyes. It's kind of it. It's pretty much, yeah, you won't get to 5 summons at all playing Blue Eyes. Okay, Fleur, you can play anything with Fleur, so you can use Nibiru and Fleur. And it's also good against Fleur, because Fleur is a really heavy combo deck. So yeah, you can just sack their board. And finally, Sacred Beast. Sacred Beast is a deck that does not summon 5 times. So, not very good against Sacred Beast. Also, you cannot special summon effect monsters except for the Sacred Beast or any monsters that mention it, so you can't play Nibiru in Sacred Beast. So, as we can see, it's not very useful as far as we could tell. A lot of these decks cannot actually play Nibiru. Bowling cannot, Performage, Shaddol, Blue Eyes, and Sacred Beast all cannot play Nibiru, and Nibiru is only good against Borrowlink, Performage, and Fleur. Yeah, so it's effective against less than half of the decks in the tier list, and I imagine it should be even worse against some of the other decks in that people are playing that aren't in the tier list. So let's talk about Sun Avalon. Sun Avalon cannot play Nibiru, even though they really like playing hand traps because Nibiru summons itself and the skill locks you from summoning. So you can't really play Nibiru. It's really susceptible to being Nibiru'd, and also it's really high value because the links don't have any attack, so the token won't be very big. And the Bengal Lancer in the 1-card combo, if you do the 1-card combo, it will banish itself when it leaves the field, so it's just gone forever. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Dark Fluid, I guess? Actually, no, let's talk about Invulnerable Knight. It's just Fleur. It's basically just Fleur, but it's also less prone to Nibiru because they can just make a monster negate. So, isn't really too big of a problem. They can pretty easily put this on the field before their 5th summon to negate the Nibiru before it hits the field. So yeah. Okay, now that we've talked about just in general how effective Nibiru would be against the meta decks, let's talk about the card itself. So Nibiru is fine. It's definitely not like game breaking. I think it's fine to have in Duel Links, as you could tell from just having a look at the decks in the meta. It's okay. It's good against some decks, not good against others, and it's fundamentally because of how Duel Links as a format functions, right? So there are decks that combo a lot, obviously, like Fleur, Boro Link, decks like that do special summon a lot, and Nibiru is going to be good against. But there are also a lot of decks like Blue Eyes or Sacred Beast or Shadows that just don't special summon a whole lot. And that is fundamentally because of skills in Duel Links. That, first of all, summons from skills don't count towards the limit, I'm pretty sure. And also, it just lets you play a lot of these anime decks like Dark Magician or Blue Eyes, or even other decks like Yubel Neos that can just normal summon high level monsters and then sit on back row. And Nibiru is just not good against those decks because they don't summon 5 times. So it is a lot of times a brick in your hand, which you would probably rather play more generic stuff like Book of Moon or Crackdown or even IDP, or for hand traps maybe play like Effect Veiler. So yeah, it's probably just going to be another hand trap that we'll see play depending on the format. So kind of like every other hand trap that we have right now, like Crow or Skullmeister even, it's gonna be similar in that it's gonna see play depending on how the meta shifts. But for now, it's fine. It's not game breaking. I think it's fine even if it's not limited to free. I see people talking about this card having to be limited free, otherwise it might be too broken. I think it's fine even if it's not limited to free, but I could see them being limited to free. But it's fine either way. And another thing about this card is that it's only good going first, because if you go second, it's going good when your opponent goes first, because if you go first, you're gonna have your own board, right? And if you use Nibiru, you're sacking your own board as well, and I don't think you want to do that. And if you go first, you're much better off playing just back row, right? You can just play Book of Moon or Crackdown or IDP and it's gonna be a million times better. But usually Nibiru is less good than these back row, and also it just tributes your own monsters as well, right? And you don't want that. So Nibiru is pretty much only really effective if your opponent goes first, and it's only effective some of the time, so I don't know. It does not seem very good. And another thing that I probably should mention is the attack stats, because in Duel Links both players have a lot less life points than in the TCG or in Master Duel, so that is something to consider. Nibiru is a 3k attack monster, and the token is very likely going to be more than 3k. It's going to be a huge token. Usually, if you are able to activate it, usually it has a lot of attack. And the token should probably most of the times be able to one-shot your opponent. So even if you successfully Nibiru your opponent, you also need to find a way to get rid of the token, because otherwise you will just die to the token in one hit, usually. So yeah, but if you do able to out the token, you yourself will have a 3k attack monster, which you can use to deal a lot of damage, so it goes both ways. So, final verdict, do I think Nibiru is a card that is a, it's broken? Is it a game-breaking staple, format-defining staple? No, it's not. It's just fine. It's like Effective Veiler when it got released. Everybody's talking about it, but it's overhyped. It's not. I think even Effective Veiler would be better than Nibiru. So, yeah. And also, Effective Veiler is not selection box exclusive, this card is. So this card is going to see even less play than Effective Veiler. I think this card is fine. For all the reasons I talk about, it's only good when your opponent goes first, and it's only good against some decks, a lot of decks can't even play it. Yeah. So let me know your thoughts about this card, or also this video in general, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.